The response to our last most requested games to test on Switch 2 was overwhelming, so much so that you flooded us with even more titles that you wanted me to check out. We're back for another round of tests covering everything from cult classics to indie hits, heavy hitters to surprise favourites. This time around, the results were a real mix. Some games saw massive improvements in load times and clarities, others not so much, and a few even ran worse in strange ways, which I wasn't expecting going in at all. So here it is, another batch of your most requested games running on Nintendo's shiny new Switch 2. Outer Wilds. Outer Wilds finally made its way to Switch after years of anticipation, and while the original port captured the game's mystery and wonder, it came at the cost of some blur, longer load times, and inconsistent frame rate, especially when flying or exploring dense areas like Hourglass Twins or Brittle Hollow. It was playable and still a fantastic experience. The improvement here is immediate. Load times are dramatically faster, the frame rate is stable in even the most taxing areas, and the overall image quality is sharper, making details in the environment easier to appreciate. The blur that softened the original version is noticeably reduced, especially in handheld mode. There's still the occasional slight pause, but I know what's causing it. When the game takes screenshots for the flashback feature before the next cycle begins, it causes a tiny hitch. It's nothing game-breaking, however. This is the final version that Outer Wilds deserves on a portable system. The performance jump makes exploration smoother and the world feel more alive. A must-visit for fans and a great starting point for newcomers. Red Dead Redemption. Now, Red Dead Redemption was a fantastic port on the original Switch, faithfully capturing the open-world Western experience. While it didn't score very highly with me or some players due to the lack of multiplayer features and some very long load times, once you're in the game, the experience was seamless. Credit where it's due, porting studio Double 11 did an excellent job preserving the feel and scope of the original game, just minus some key features. The biggest improvement here is without a doubt the load times. They're dramatically faster, making exploration and mission restarts less of a chore. Visually, the game already looked great on the Switch 1, and that remains the case here, with minimal performance issues to speak of. Everything runs smoothly, and it feels like the definitive way to play on Nintendo hardware. Well worth a revisit, especially with those persistent Red Dead Redemption 2 Switch 2 rumours swirling around. It's an excellent port made even better by faster loading and solid performance. If you missed it the first time around, the Switch 2 is a perfect excuse to saddle up. Rocket League. Rocket League delivered its addictive car soccer action on the original Switch in a surprisingly solid port. While it didn't match the visual clarity of other platforms and suffered from occasional stutters and low quality textures, it was still more than good enough to enjoy the core gameplay loop, especially in handheld mode. Now this is actually a huge improvement because the game runs silky smooth at 60 FPS with crystal clear graphics that finally do the game's speed and precision justice. Everything just feels more responsive and visually sharp in both docked and handheld modes. Here's hoping we eventually get a Switch 2 version like Fortnite received to really push it further. It's one of the best ways to play Rocket League on the go and a fantastic glow up that makes matches feel smoother, sharper and more competitive. Skyrim. Skyrim is possibly my most favourite game of all time, and the original Switch port was already a great way to experience it. Bethesda did an excellent job making the massive open world playable on the Nintendo hardware without sacrificing too much in the way of visuals or performance. Honestly, I wasn't really expecting any major changes going in. On the Switch 2, the load times are significantly shorter, making fast travel and dungeon entrances far less of a wait. There's also a slight frame rate boost, but outside of that, no major differences. It still holds up brilliantly, but this isn't a game that pushes new hardware. Skyrim was a great port and it's just made a little bit better. If you love Skyrim on the Switch 1, this is simply a smoother, faster version of that same beloved adventure. If Todd Howard thinks that I'm going to buy Skyrim Switch 2 edition when they release it for the 16th time, he's absolutely right. Where's my credit card? Let's go. Gear Club Unlimited 2. Oh, I have spent so much time on this, especially in the endurance races. Gear Club Unlimited 2 offered a great arcade-style racing experience with tons of content. The original port, while enjoyable, was held back by very long load times and some minor frame rate issues, especially noticeable during endurance races. Despite these flaws, it remained one of the better racing games on the platform. On the Switch 2, load times are significantly improved, but they still feel long compared to other titles on the system. The level of detail pop-in is still noticeable in some areas, and while I'm still learning the best way to measure frame rates precisely, it appears to be locked at 30 FPS with the occasional stutter, and it's a bit disappointment given the improvements we've seen in other titles, but the game remains fun and fully playable. It's not the leap forward I was hoping for, but it's still an enjoyable racer with plenty of content. Hopefully a future patch or proper Switch 2 version can unlock this game's full potential. Now these next two are my most requested games at the moment, Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 was already a technical marvel on the original Switch thanks to the porting wizards at Panic Button. It delivered frantic, fluid demon-slaying action on hardware that really had no business running it this well. It set the standard for how demanding shooters should be adapted to the platform. On the Switch 2, load times are lightning fast, seriously impressive, and the game runs very smoothly with even clearer visuals than before. Everything feels so much smooth and crisper across the board. One downside, for some reason the cloud saves are disabled, which was a strange limitation for such a high profile game, but my saves did carry across from the system transfer. Doom 2016 was already fantastic on the Switch 1, but this is easily the best version you can play on Nintendo hardware. It's fast, it's sharp, it's brutally fun, just as it should be. Doom Eternal was another jaw-dropping Panic Button port that somehow brought the game's fast-paced, chaotic action to the original Switch. To make it work, the developers had to sacrifice texture quality, rely heavily on adaptive resolution, especially during heavy combat moments. Framerate dips were also common in larger encounters, but even with these compromises, the game still delivered an impressive and fully playable Doom experience on portable hardware. On the Switch 2, the framerate is now smooth, load times are blisteringly fast, the overall sharpness has improved noticeably. That said, the game still shows its lower texture quality compared to Doom 2016, which holds it back slightly in pure visual impact. Despite this, it remains a fantastic way to experience one of the best modern shooters, complete with this intense campaign intact. It's a huge step up in performance and clarity, but the texture limitations of the original port are still felt. Even so, it's a blast to play and worthy addition to any Switch 2 library, especially when it's on sale. Now, let's all cross our fingers for Doom the Dark Ages on Switch 2. Hot Lap Racing. Hot Lap Racing is a great little indie racer with a strong foundation, even if the original release had some rough edges, including framerate dips and a few bugs. Credit to the developers though, as they've been supporting this game post-launch with updates and new content, which really helped improve it over time. Especially impressive because they're an indie developer. On the Switch 2, right from the start, the game looks noticeably sharper, with clearer visuals and an improved, more stable frame rate. I did encounter a small bug where all my achievements reissued themselves, but this resolved eventually without issue. Overall, this is a solid improvement and a great excuse to revisit what's become one of the Switch's more charming racing games. It's a meaningful upgrade that smooths out some of the original version's flaws, definitely worth driving back into, especially to enjoy the new content with better performance. Grounded. Grounded brought its unique Honey I Shrunk the Kids survival adventure to the Switch in a surprisingly fun and engaging port. While the original release suffered from noticeable adaptive resolution blur and some frame rate issues, especially when exploring large open areas, it didn't take away from the charm or creativity of the experience. On the Switch 2, as usual, load times are noticeably shorter and the overall image quality has improved. The heavy blur from the original version has been reduced, though there's still a light soft-edged look in some spots. Frame rate feels more stable, making the game world feel smoother and easier to explore. It's a big step up overall, even if it's not such a complete transformation. It's a solid improvement that makes this backyard survival game even more enjoyable, definitely worth revisiting, especially if you bounce off the original due to those performance issues. Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 arrived on the Switch in surprisingly good form considering the scale of the game. The port captured a chaotic, loot-filled action but suffered from framerate dips and extremely long load times that could break the pace of the game. While the framerate has seen a noticeable improvement, other areas have started to take a hit. Load times are still long, disappointingly so, and I encountered graphical glitches when using fast travel, which the map flashes odd colours. There's still some hitching when you're driving around areas, occasional visual tearing, and I even had enemies just disappear on me. Strangely, this actually feels like a rougher experience on Switch 2 than compared to the original hardware. It's a bit of a mixed bag because the framerate boost is welcome, but the new visual bugs and persistent load times make it feel like a step sideways, or even sometimes backwards. Probably one to be cautious about until a patch hopefully arrives. Now, just for clarification, I realise they're not going to do a Switch patch of this game, but hopefully they do a Switch 1 patch which fixes these issues. And finally, we have Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered brought a fan favourite entry in the series to the Switch, but its launch wasn't without issues, particularly with audio. The problems were significant enough that Ubisoft released a hefty 3GB patch months after launch to fix the sound and improve overall stability. On the Switch, unfortunately my save file didn't carry over and didn't save to the cloud, so I was only able to test the early game. That said, these areas ran smoothly and load times felt a bit faster than I remember. The audio seemed fine during my limited play, but I wasn't able to fully stress test the later missions or more crowded city sequences. Visually, the game does look sharp, though it's hard to draw a broader conclusion without a deeper playthrough. Early performance looks and sounds good, but I'll just need a little bit more time with it on my Switch 2 to see if it truly fixes the lingering issues from the original port. Now that's another round of testing done. Like last time, the results show that not every game gets an automatic upgrade on the Switch 2. Some ports are fresh and revitalized, like Doom 16 and Rocket League, they're great examples, while others like Borderlands 3 just left me scratching my head wondering what went wrong. One thing's for sure, the Switch 2's extra power does make a real big difference in load times and clarities for adaptive resolution titles, but a true next-gen experience will likely depend on dedicated Switch 2 versions down the track. Got another game you want me to test? I'm already working on Video 4, so drop your requests in the comments below, and hopefully it makes it to Video 5. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much for watching my video. If you liked it, the best way you can support What's It Like is by liking, subscribing, and sharing it with your friends. For more reviews, click on the thumbnails to the right, and for everything Nintendo, check out whatsItlike.com.au.